everyone, something crazy just happened. First, listen to this.
申し訳ございません。そのお名前のご予約が見当たらないのですが、
でも予約しました。
メールはお持ちですか？
はい。
申し訳ないんですが、こちらのシステムには入っていないようです。
そうなんです
本
ね。
日は満室でして、お部屋のご用意ができません。
You know, the person I was talking to was actually AI. Hi everyone, I'm Alpaca, your native Japanese coach. Have you ever practiced Aizuchi before? Like the little responses we use during conversations? Probably not. Today, I'll show you 5 steps using the latest ChatGPT feature to keep your conversations going without getting stuck. All you need is a newly updated ChatGPT-Live, and that's the only tool we're gonna use today. If you don't want to keep getting stuck in conversations and saying like, every time, make sure you watch until the end. Step 1. Get someone who can wait. I'll be honest with you. The reason you can't speak Japanese isn't that you don't have enough vocabulary. When you stand in front of someone, your mind goes completely blank, right? Why does that happen? It happens because you aren't given enough time to think. Did you think, yeah, that makes sense? Someone talks to you, you build the meaning in your head, and then you make your answer. That takes 10 seconds, right? Or maybe it takes even longer, and you really start to panic. I totally understand that, but in a real conversation, you don't get 10 seconds of silence. After about 3 seconds, Japanese people switch to English right away or finish your sentence for you, or maybe laugh. You probably explained that, right? So what can you do? You need to build someone who will wait for you, but you can't make that person wait forever. If they do, you can practice comfortably, but you will never be able to talk with Japanese people. So try saying this to ChatGPT and first make someone who can wait. Let's talk in Japanese. I'm a beginner. Speak slowly, use short sentences, and stay in Japanese. If I go quiet, wait 7 seconds before you say anything. After 7 seconds, ask me again in easier Japanese, or give me 2 options. Never switch to English and never finish my sentence for me. It doesn't just stay silent and keep waiting, and instead it asks you again in easier Japanese. Then you gradually make those 7 seconds shorter, so once you're used to it, make it 5 seconds and then 3 seconds. In a real conversation, the other person usually starts doing something after about 3 seconds. So once you can answer within 3 seconds, your timing is fast enough for the real thing. In the previous version of live mode, you finished speaking, the AI spoke, and then you spoke again. So the moment you went silent, it became the AI's turn. The latest GPT Live can listen while talking at the same time, and when you go quiet, it doesn't automatically mean your turn is over. So now it can wait, and if you have enough time when practicing alone, I think you can usually manage to say something. Now we finally have someone who can actually give you that time. But even if they wait for you, that's still not enough. What matters is what you do with those 7 seconds. That's what we'll talk about next. Step 2. Just keep using Aizuchi. This is the main point today. When you hear Japanese, you probably keep replaying it in your head, trying forever to understand what it means, don't you? Actually, that is very typical for people who can't speak yet. The action comes first, meaning comes later. Japanese is a language where you need Aizuchi every 4 seconds. English has these too, like and right. But Japanese is different. One study recorded 12 pairs speaking Japanese and English, then counted 3-minute sections from those conversations. Japanese Aizuchi appeared much more frequently than English back-channel responses did. So Japanese conversation is made up of reactions almost as much as the actual content. And you don't need any difficult vocabulary to react, right? For example, はい、そうなんですね. You can use these with people at a ryokan, store shop, or someone you just met. When what they say is new information for you, you can say, あ、そうなんですね. When you are simply showing that you are listening, say, はい. I think it's best to hear it.
昨日京都に行ってきたんですけど、
はい。
人がすごく多くて、お寺の前で1時間くらい並びました。
そうなんですね。
I only use 3, and even every single one is simple, right? Once you get used to them, we can add more. With friends, you can use へー and なるほど. But if you use with someone above you, suddenly it sounds kind of childish. We use なるほど when we want to say we understood, but try using it even when you didn't completely understand. へー can also sound a little too casual to some people. I don't think textbooks teach you things like this. So how do you actually practice this Aizuchi? Tell ChatGPT this and just keep practicing. your aiduchi over and over. Talk to me in Japanese for 3 minutes about anything, a recipe, a movie, your day. Speak slowly but keep going. I'm going to practice aiduchi while you speak. If I go quiet for more than 5 seconds, keep talking anyway. You don't need to understand the content. Actually, don't even try to understand it. What you are doing now isn't listening practice because you are practicing how to react. Respond naturally without understanding everything. And if you kind of understand, that's enough. But I imagine some people are thinking this. You could already practice aiduchi with the old AI. Actually, that wasn't possible. Aiduchi is something you use while the other person is still speaking. But the moment you jump in, the old AI stops talking. So there was no partner you could actually practice this with. I believe the real value of GPT-Live isn't just the conversations become smoother. For Japanese beginners, now you can finally practice aiduchi properly. That is actually the biggest upgrade here. Try practicing only the aiduchi for 3 minutes every day for 1 month. You can check for yourself whether anything has changed. Was there any time when you stayed silent while the other person was speaking? If those disappear, that's proof you've improved. After you get used to aiduchi, focus on what you say next. But if you choose the wrong situation, it all goes to waste. Step 3. Choose one situation you will actually speak. Once you can react, the next step is what you say, and there are 2 conditions. First, when it is over, you need to know clearly whether you succeeded. Did you get a room or did they remake the food? Second, the other person shouldn't immediately say yes, since a request that goes through right away gives you no practice. When they refuse or something unexpected happens, that is when you need words. Choose a situation with both conditions. At a hotel, they cannot find your reservation, and you need to secure a room tonight. Your food contains something you cannot eat, so you need them to remake it. Something you bought is broken, so you need a refund. You cannot point your way through these situations, so you can only solve them with words. And all of them can actually happen on your next trip. There is one more tip when choosing. Pick a situation that makes you kind of annoyed, okay? Words stick when your emotions move, and practicing your introduction dozens of time may not help if you feel nothing. I always say practice only the words you will use tomorrow, and spend 0 seconds memorizing words you will not use. Once you choose the situation, go through it only in English first. Why English? Are we practicing Japanese? If you thought that, listen carefully. Start immediately in Japanese means doing 2 things at the same time. You are making Japanese sentences and thinking about what to say, so beginners always stop when doing both together. Your brain freezes and all that comes out is but there's an even more basic point. If you cannot say it in English, you definitely cannot say it in Japanese. Go through it in English first, and everything you want to say comes out. Then only translate it but reverse the order, and you will never speak. So say this to ChatGPT. Let's roleplay in English first. You work at a hotel front desk. I have a reservation but you can't find it and the hotel is full tonight. Don't give it right away. Refuse 2 or 3 times, then find me a room. Be a real person, not a polite assistant. But honestly, you can think through all of these tiny details when writing a prompt, right? And I don't want you spending time on that. So I made all 6 prompts special collection I'm introducing today for you. The 7-second setting and 3-minute aiduchi are included too, so you just read them aloud. So right now everyone, tap the link in the description, sign up for my official newsletter, and send me bamen 3 hiragana characters. Let's practice together over and over until you can speak calmly and confidently in any situation. Step 4. Get your mouth used to Japanese. You've gone through it once in English and everything you wanted to say is already there. Turn off the audio and ask this. Turn everything I just said into natural Japanese, then make a table of the words and phrases I need for this exact situation. Keep it at elephant level at Hiragana. What you just say in English will come back to you in Japanese just like that. The Japanese in the table isn't something someone else made, and it's the Japanese version of what you actually said. But don't try to memorize all of it here. Pick just 3. For the hotel situation, it will look like this. でも予約しました。メールがあります。もう一度見てもらえますか？すみません。ゆっくり言ってもらえますか? People often think Japanese is a language where you're not looking confused enough for people to understand, but if you don't actually say something, they may not get it, and you feel disappointed again. And the third one is especially important. すみません。ゆっくり言ってもらえますか? If you can say this and actually ask a real person to slow down, that's already a big sign that you've made progress. I think most of you have heard phrases like these before and can read them, but have you ever actually say them? Being able to read something and being able to say it are totally different skills, and in a real situation, conversation, only words that come out without thinking are useful. So practice them until your mouth kind of moves by itself, and the way you do that is repeat after me. In Japanese schools, we always do this in English class, and you probably did the same thing at your school. Now, the person you're practicing with is just AI instead of a teacher, and you can divide the practice into 3 levels. Level 1, have it read slowly and copy it. Level 2, start slowly and gradually have it bring the phrases up to a natural speed. Level 3, have it say the English and you change it into Japanese. Tell ChatGPT this to set up your practice environment. Let's practice the 3 phrases from the table. First, read each one slowly and let me repeat. Then read it again at natural speed. Finally, say the English and I'll say the Japanese. Correct my pronunciation and rhythm, not my grammar. Pay attention to the last line of the prompt and don't let it correct your grammar at this stage. If you start correcting your grammar now, you'll probably stop moving your mouth and start thinking in your head again, so it became the same thing you always do. You only needed to correct the sound. If you want to speak better, don't try to fix everything at once. Focus on one thing first. That's how I work on my English pronunciation, and little by little, I got to the point where I can speak like this. Step 5. Stay in Japanese with aizuchi. Now we practice. The Japanese you learned becomes yours the moment you actually use it. There's only thing to do and you just say this. Let's do the same role play again in Japanese this time. I'm a beginner, so speak slowly and stay in Japanese. If I go quiet, wait 5 seconds. Then ask again in easier Japanese. Don't give in right away. Refuse 2 or 3 times, then find me a room. Just like in English, ask the AI not to give in right away. Let's try it.
申し訳ございません。ご予約が見当たらないのですが、
sorry. How do I say I have the confirmation email?
予約のメールがありますですね。
はい。予約のメールがあります。
Did you hear that? In the middle of the conversation, I used English and then went back to Japanese. Before, once I used English even one time, the whole conversation would just continue in English. But now, the English I asked became the Japanese I used right after.
拝見しますね。こちらには入っていないです。本日は満室で、お部屋のご用意ができません。
もう一度見てもらえますか？
見ましたが、ないものはございませんので、
すみません。ゆっくり言ってもらえますか？
今日は部屋が全部いっぱいです。
はい、困ります。どうしたらいいですか？
そうですよね。少々お待ちください。一部屋だけご用意できるお部屋がありました。
はい、お願いします。ありがとうございます。
Phew, I got the room. I only used the 3 phrases I chose in step 4 plus my one backup phrase. ゆっくり言ってもらえますか? This already came up right after, you know. When I couldn't understand something, I was able to ask them to say it again myself. And if the conversation doesn't go well, just tell the AI this. Do the same conversation again. It will practice with you as many as you want, even 5 or 10 times. You can't ask hotel staff to repeat the same conversation with you 10 times, right? Only AI can do this. One of my American students did this and traveled around Japan for 1 month and could talk with staff in Japanese after 6 months of joining my course. When people couldn't understand her, she changed how she said it and got through the whole conversation herself. If you use this, you can reach the same place too. All you need is one conversation partner who will wait for you. When you can say it all in Japanese, people respond to you differently. They start brushing you off as just another tourist. For everyone, is it pretty hard to figure out what you need to say on your next trip? When you choose the situations yourself, you usually miss choosing something like a restaurant where you can just point and finish. That doesn't give you practice. So I corrected 30 situations where you can tell afterward whether you could do it or not. Try using today's prompt to practice in different situations. You can get these from the link in the description to send me Bamen. Thank you so much for listening until the end today, and if this video helped, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.